All right, before we start this podcast today, let's make sure that you're part of the I Am Salt Lake Facebook group. Even if you think that you're already part of it, go double check. Just type in iamsaltlake.com/group or do a search for I Am Salt Lake Community inside of Facebook. Double check, make sure you're part of the community. Come talk, let's socialize on social media. Let's be friends. Today on episode 422, we get to sit down and we get to chat with Chief Executive Officer and President of Planned Parenthood of Utah, Karrie Galloway. You know, it was truly an honor to bring Karrie into our podcast studio and get to sit down with her and find out more about Planned Parenthood and what the last 30 plus years has looked like for Karrie. Can you believe that she's been with Planned Parenthood for over 30 years? Such a great lady, such a great conversation. We're going to get into that in just a moment, but let's quickly introduce ourselves. Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Chris Hollifield. You can follow my shenanigans, my antics, my personal life on Instagram at Chris Hollifield.
And my name's Chrissy Hollifield, and if you want no pressure, you can follow me on my personal Instagram at Lady Salt Lake. And if this is your first time listening to this podcast, you might be asking yourself what it's all about. Well, this podcast is all about showcasing awesome people in Salt Lake City, Utah. We get to talk to business owners, comedians, authors, tattoo artists, restaurant owners, breweries, distilleries, food truck owners, so many people, and really anyone that might have a cool story to share.
All right, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by our friends at Mark Miller Subaru. Hey, remember, when you support our awesome sponsors, you're directly supporting this podcast.
So the Love Promise program is what makes Subaru and Mark Miller Subaru so special.
The Love Promise means being more than just a car company. It's Mark Miller Subaru's vision to show love and respect to all people at every interaction with Subaru. Mark Miller Subaru is dedicated to making the world a better place.
And Subaru of America actually selected Mark Miller Subaru as the country's 2018 Love Promise Retailer of the Year.
So awesome, because this is the most distinguished award Subaru of America awards each year, and it's only given to one Subaru retailer throughout the entire country.
Mark Miller Subaru was selected for this award because of Mark Miller Subaru's unique and strategic approach to supporting charitable causes right here in Utah. While Mark Miller Subaru has donated a sizable amount of money over the years, that's not all they do. Mark Miller Subaru develops deep and meaningful partnership with charities to make real change in our community.
So whether you're buying a car at Mark Miller Subaru or just simply getting a little bit of service done, you're helping Mark Miller Subaru leave a mark on the lives of others in our local Salt Lake City community.
And no matter what part of the valley you live on, Mark Miller Subaru has 2 convenient locations for you to visit. There's Mark Miller Subaru Midtown at 3535 South State Street in Salt Lake City. This is the one that Chris and I personally use for all of our Subaru needs. And Mark Miller Subaru Southtown at 10920 State Street in Sandy.
All right, this week's challenge is to go test drive a Subaru today. Go drive one of the Imprezas, one of the Outbacks. I think you're going to love it because I couldn't imagine living here in Utah without our Impreza.
Yeah, you can't not love a Subaru. So again, go visit them at their Midtown or Southtown locations, and many thanks again to Mark Miller Subaru for supporting this episode of the podcast.
All right, I think we're ready to get into that conversation with Karrie Galloway. This is good, you guys. Pay attention, because we were truly lucky to have Karrie here in our podcast studio. We're truly lucky to have Karrie living in our city. So enjoy this conversation. Thanks so much for listening. A fun question I've asked a lot of people that come through here is, what did their childhood smell like?
Ooh, smell like. You know, that's a great question, Chris, because I grew up on a lake in Wisconsin, and it was a shallow lake, so it was a fertile lake. And we grew a lot of algae in the summer. And as kids, I'm the oldest of 6, there were times we didn't even want to go in the lake because there would be oobleck in the lake and things like that. And now that I live in an arid state of Utah, sometimes I pass, like while I'm hiking, some standing water, and I get that smell of fertile water. It has a unique smell to it. and I think of my childhood. And so it's the type of thing that I think of. And I also grew up in an area where there were a lot of paper factories, and they have a lot of offshoots that doesn't come out of a smokestack. It comes out as sludge. And you could smell Kaukauna sometimes, or you could smell another neighboring community, depending on the wind blowing.
Now, what town did you grow up in Wisconsin?
I grew up in Neenah, Wisconsin, and you see that word a lot on the bottom of Kleenex boxes.
Okay.
Or tampon boxes.
Okay.
Because that's where Kimberly Clark started, and that's where their patent comes from. Also, manhole covers, because we had a foundry in Neenah that makes manhole covers for the entire world. And people will sometimes let me know that they were in another country and they saw a manhole cover that came from Neenah, Wisconsin.
So where is that located compared to where you grew up in
I know
Oconomowoc?
of Neenah because I actually wrote to Kimberly Clark when I was in high school or like middle school to do science project. I grew up in Oconomowoc.
Oh, yeah.
So, but big lake town. When you were talking about lakes, that's all I could think of.
Well, you had Lake Michigan.
But yeah, pretty close, down by Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Yeah. The town I grew up in is mostly lakes with strips of land through them.
Oh,
so it's
neat.
it's really, it's a beautiful, beautiful
Wisconsin's
town.
beautiful, though. Do you get back very often?
I do.
Yeah.
The mosquitoes are a nightmare.
Yes, they are. It's a nice way to live in Utah. Outside in the evening, you don't get eaten alive.
Yeah. You're not afraid to go outside in the summer. Yeah. It's great.
It is.
So did Planned Parenthood bring you to Utah then, or what brought you to Utah?
My husband at the time and I were coming west to backpack, to ski. And we decided we wanted to live out here for a while.
Yeah.
And he was in computers and started working back at Sperry, which is now Unisys, I think.
Oh, wow.
So how many years ago was this?
The late 70s.
Wow. Salt Lake City in Utah must have been a completely different place back then.
Oh, yeah, because I had been living in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Which is like the party central USA.
Well, and it was
very liberal.
also in the late 60s when I went to school at the University of Wisconsin. You know, as a freshman, you went out and fought the National Guard, and they had guns, and you had a kerchief to put over your nose when they did the tear gas.
Huh.
Yeah.
So it's probably really
It was
different.
really stupid way to live, but you were young and that's what you did.
So how did you get involved with Planned Parenthood then? Let's jump right. I mean, there's tons to talk about with Planned Parenthood. So that's kind of why I want to jump right into that. Is that okay, Chrissy?
That's great. I love it. I love it.
We were thinking about having children.
Okay.
You know, being a gal of the 60s, I had lived communally. And, you know, it was kind of selfish to have kids of your own. Maybe you should co-parent or adopt. And so Planned Parenthood at that time had a great community class in options in parenthood. And they brought in all sorts of people of notoriety. Dee Corradini's parents.
Oh, wow.
He was a minister. She was a wonderful woman, and they talked about how they did or didn't plan their family. Other people in the community talked about how they made those decisions or they just happened, and how they flexed their life to live with them. And it was a class of about 6 couples, and most of us made it through to the end. And at that time, we decided to make our own babies. But my background's in elementary education. I didn't really like public schools. And there was an opening at Planned Parenthood when we finished the class. And I applied for it. It was in the education department. I wasn't their first choice. But the first choice wouldn't take it because of the salary. But I would. And
I bet you they're glad they brought you on now, right?
I've been there ever since 1981.
Wow.
That's so great.
You know, it was interesting to grow up professionally in an organization that I had such a passion for. Because as I was growing up, it was the time when it was, free love and daisies in your hair and all of that sort of stuff. And I can remember learning how to be a model or a sample person for the medical school, for teaching new doctors how to do pelvic exams. I had a passion for women's health and teaching people how to do it the right way. So it was the right thing to have happen, to move here to a community that operated so differently from the community I came from, to be able to use my skills, my thoughtfulness, my passion to create a better world for women and families, navigating hard decisions of family planning in a state that didn't really support family planning.
Yeah, it's all about have big families, right?
And you need to search out someone who could respect your individual questioning, wanting to take more time to plan your family, wanting to be more circumspect. It was just the perfect marriage for me. And I've been with them since 81. And I became the director in 89 or 87. I can't remember. And so, when I joined Planned Parenthood, we were a small organization. Now we're about up to $12 million organization, 8 clinics, comprehensive in our services that we provide to Utah. And I personally can feel like I'm making a difference in the community I live in. Mm-hmm. And I've been lucky that I've been able to make a difference.
Yeah. It must be tough, though, Planned Parenthood in Utah. It must be a tough state. Or is that that an unfair question?
That's not unfair at all, because they don't teach sex education in the school system here. That's one of my things. It's like, oh my gosh, why aren't you teaching kids? And I'm personally super grateful for Planned Parenthood because we have daughters who are growing up, and it's a great resource for education. I went with one of my daughters and met a doctor there, and we talked through everything, and she was just so awesome. It's shame-free. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's an amazing place.
When people say, oh, that must be a lonely job in Utah, there are challenges here.
Yeah.
But there are different challenges. Some of my colleagues face the nastiest protesters out in front of their health centers, and they have such a...
Here in Utah?
No. Oh. In other parts, parts of the country. They face such horribleness in protecting their clients and their staff. Here, we have to be totally on guard for those who want to erode or put roadblocks in people's way to actualize their decisions about creating families. But we follow the rules pretty much, and we have a polite society here.
Yeah.
And I happen to enjoy the challenge of coming up against people who think differently and helping them see that the most important thing we all have to have is compassion for people to be able to actualize their lives the way they see fit. As long as they're not breaking any rules, families are so important. They take so much effort, so much money, so much emotional stress. And we need to do everything we can to empower families to do it the way they want, because a strong family makes a strong community.
Exactly.
So in that way, no matter how hard it gets, I feel good about what Planned Parenthood is doing for the youth, for the adults, for the health care professionals, in helping train them how to provide the most compassionate and authentic care to their clients.
Now, this is the 50th year of Planned Parenthood in Utah, but not the 50th. Like, they've been around in general longer.
We've been around for about 103, 105 years.
And they just didn't go to all the states at first? Or
Because it's a grassroots effort. It's a federated model. So Planned Parenthood of Utah is a separate corporation, but we get our trademark from our national organization. We get our med malpractice. But with that, we also get our rules and regulations as to how to practice medicine. We share responsibilities. We do electoral work locally in Utah. The national group does it nationally. We share the load, but it was in 71 or 69 it started. A delightful young woman at home from Mills College.
Here, this is how it came to Utah.
It started in Utah.
Yeah.
Joan Draper, who has just joined Planned Parenthood's board of directors this year because she's moved back to Utah after retirement. But she came home from Mills College, and her summer project was to work on community organizing. And she went to her parents' friends who were in the business community and at the University of Utah, and she helped them organize an affiliate of Planned Parenthood here in Utah.
Was that a huge challenge for her?
Well, she's a dynamic woman.
She must be.
I'd love to meet her.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. She's just a delightful woman. But she retired from law practice in D.C. and returned here to Utah and has joined us on the board. And it's always fun living the old times with her. But we started in Planned Parenthood and we incorporated in 70 or 71. So this makes it our 50th year. And as I've been saying to board and staff, we need to determine what we're going to be now that we're grown up, you know? Mm-hmm. And so we're looking at our next 50 years, how to structure ourselves to make the most of the new world that we're living in. And, you know, it's just wonderful being part of the movement.
It's an exciting time to be alive right now. There's a lot of things changing. We're shifting, a lot of laws and regulations with all kinds of things going on. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Momentum Electric, which you can find at momentumelectricslc.com. Momentum Electric is your local Salt Lake City electrical company with over 10 years of experience from Kevin and his team. At Momentum, you can always trust their employees in the work that they do. Some of the services that they offer. All right, maybe you need to add some wall outlets. Momentum Electric can do that. Maybe you want to change out some can lighting. They can do that. Maybe you want to change out devices. Well, Momentum Electric can do that. Maybe you want to change out your electrical panel and service equipment at your house. Well, Momentum Electric can do that. Or, hey, did you get yourself a Tesla or a brand new electric vehicle and you need to get one of those fancy EV chargers? Well, Momentum Electric can do that for you. If it has to do with electrical, chances are Momentum Electric can help you out. Momentum believes in following the National Electric Code and doing the finest work to make your home more beautiful and more efficient. Momentum Electric has fair pricing and they'll never try and sell you on something that you don't need or doesn't work for your situation. They're always going to listen to your needs and help to solve your issues in the best way possible. Momentum will always treat you with the utmost respect because they want to create a lifelong relationship with you. Their website, momentumelectricslc.com, go visit it, or better yet, you can just give Kevin a call, 801-580-2430, so he can give you an estimate for your job. Again, the website, momentumelectricslc.com, or just give Kevin a call, 801-580-2430. And many thanks to Momentum Electrical for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Let's talk about this gala, though. Before I forget to bring it up, you guys are doing it at the end of March. I'm going to let you just share all the details of it, like the date, the time, where it's at. what it's going to be and so on and so forth?
Well, our plan is to celebrate all year long.
Well, sure. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. You got to celebrate.
And I mean, we have a board. We have incredible financial supporters and donors to Planned Parenthood who raise incredible funds to subsidize all the other services we provide. We also have 7,000 ambassadors who have signed up to be public supporters of Planned Parenthood. They choose how they do it, but they have material sent to them, talking points on how to talk to their family, to their neighbors, to their community organizations. So we're looking at celebrating all year long with the public as well as the interior people who support Planned Parenthood. But every organization has to do a gala.
Of course.
Because somebody wants to put on good clothes and go to a gala and eat questionable food, even though ours will be just fine, and see all their friends and talk about why they support the movement that they're gala-ing over. And we have an incredible board member, Mike Aguilar.
Yeah, great guy.
Who loves planning parties. And so, plan ours. And he's got friends galore. And this is really a community project. He's brought his friends. They've brought their friends. They've all got different jobs. They're all gathering the items for the auctions. They're planning games that people can play.
Like what kind of games?
Games of chance.
Okay.
That you can put down $10. And
I was thinking like Twister or
that could be fun. That may be it. There's tossing things through holes.
Okay.
There's popping balloons.
Yeah.
You could be on the committee, Chris.
It's tempting.
I don't know that anyone's brought up Twister yet. But we are really looking forward to celebrating in the gala way.
Yeah.
At the end of March, after the legislative session, when everyone's had a chance to take a breath, the last Saturday in March, on the 28th, we're gathering. And it will be fun.
Where's it going to be at?
That's a good question. We lost our first venue because, if you don't have some bumps in the road,
then you're not really alive.
You're not doing it right.
You're not really digging in on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while I was at a meeting in Denver this week, Mike called and said, we're not going to be able to use our first event center, but we found another one. So this is a new event center, and it's on 6th South and West Temple. And I haven't seen it yet.
What's the name
Where
of
that
it?
would be?
Is it the Infinity Event Center?
No. It's a new modern event center.
No, that's on.
Really?
This isn't fair to your listeners.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
We don't know where we're going.
I'm going to Google it.
What I'll do here, Karrie, is
There's
I'm
a website.
going to put a link at IamSaltLake.com with this episode. We have like little links and show notes and stuff like that. That way people can go there and get the exact website. So because to buy some tickets, right? So they can come and support it.
They certainly can.
Yeah.
But these community supporters who are planning this know that a gala comes with the fancy clothes and the big ticket price. Mm-hmm. And a lot of Planned Parenthood supporters don't want to pay the big ticket price. So they are incorporating a glow event that starts after the gala. And that information could also be on the link because we have a website, and that's going to be like a $25 event.
Do you know more about that or no?
I don't.
Okay.
It's just going to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
Well, there are going to be bands.
But proceeds go to Planned Parenthood.
Proceeds go to Planned Parenthood. There will be transportation from people who come to the gala, who want to be taken to the next event. I mean, they could go on all night long and celebrate good sex, responsible sex, safe sex, and Planned Parenthood.
Hey, I like sex. I'm going to be honest
Really?
with you,
Yeah,
right?
so crazy.
But it is important, it
is really important, especially with a lot of people don't think of Planned Parenthood in terms of family planning like you've been discussing. And I think that that's a really important way to look at it because so many people are not ready and they, kind of accidentally have families. And then the kids suffer because the adults weren't prepared to know how to handle everything. And so it's really good to kind of plan and know what you're getting into and have the resources.
Well, I have to say, as we started speaking about this, and my passion for education and how I started at Planned Parenthood, one of the things I'm incredibly proud of is Planned Parenthood of Utah thoroughly invests in education programs. And we pilot programs that are being tested with fidelity in other Planned Parenthoods throughout the country using national money to look at. We've got a great program called Teen Council, and Teen Council is a leadership training program for high school kids for how to work with your peers in helping them understand consent for sexuality, to understand how to protect themselves, how to have responsible and authentic relationships with their friends. And they also learn how to talk to younger kids because they do STD prevention and consent programs in middle school. Because you think about talking about sex, you'd rather talk to it about a young person than talk to him about your parents.
Yeah, who wants to talk to their parents? Right?
Nobody wants to do that.
What do parents know anyway about sex? They only had it once to have me, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, and we're lucky. I mean, without getting into a ton of detail, I mean, our kids come and talk to us. Well, I'm grateful for that.
And that's what's so interesting is I was never comfortable talking about sex my whole life. Very, very uncomfortable. And it's been interesting as our kids have grown that they really want to talk about it and discuss and ask me questions. And so it's been very interesting for me to learn how to open up and discuss. And it's been kind of a cool experience,
I don't think it should be a hard topic to talk about.
It shouldn't be. But I think, the generations up until now, it wasn't it? It was kind of, ooh, don't talk about it. If you ignore it, it won't happen.
Yeah,
or
if they get pregnant, send them to the uncle's farm, so nobody knows,
and
right?
We're making a cultural shift where you said especially that you're teaching consent. I mean, that's a new concept and it shouldn't be,
It's sad
but
that it is.
I mean, it wasn't talked about until the last 5 years, maybe?
It certainly has been talked about the last 5 years with the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People are realizing that unless you affirmatively give consent, you have no right.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Salt Lake City Dreadlock Shop.
The Salt Lake City Dreadlock Shop's mission is to make Utah cool, one dreadlock at a time, while offering a clean, affordable, and professional experience filled with love and understanding. They actually offer a clean dreadlock knotting service. Clean dreads are a crochet method. No wax, no gross internet neglect dreads. Have you always wanted dreadlocks but didn't know where to start? These are the guys to go to. They're amazing. They are so wonderful. I actually went the other week and I got my hair done by them, and they are incredible. They give you all the information you need. You feel like you're with a family while you're talking to them.
They look so great on you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I really like them. I love them so much. And, it's just a great experience, great people. If you want to try to get a free consultation and see what it will cost for you, you can text them a picture of your hair at 801-824-8298. You can include what you're thinking, include your name, and wait for a response. They'll text you back as soon as they can, and they are so helpful. I have never had a better experience trying to get more understanding of what I want to do. It really, really was great. I genuinely recommend them to everybody. So you can visit them at slcdreads.com. Go stop by at 1528 South State Street in Salt Lake City, Utah, or text them at 801-824-8298, and they will respond and answer all of your questions in the most kind and friendly way possible. And thank you to Salt Lake City Dreadlock Shop for sponsoring this episode of the podcast.
We asked our Facebook group, Karrie. I want to get into some of these questions. We got a few questions. Michael actually submitted a question for the conversation. We have a Facebook group, which I urge everybody listening to join. It's I Am Salt Lake Community on Facebook. You can get to it really easy. iamsaltlake.com/group, I think it is, and that will forward you to the Facebook group.
I think so.
So Michael's question here, Karrie, is what does the loss of Title X funding, a result of the Trump-Pence administration, mean to Planned Parenthood Association of Utah and the patients PPAU serves?
Oh,
that's a big question.
It is.
I don't understand any of it.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing, it's Title 10.
Oh, Title
It's
10, Title
Roman
X. Yeah. Okay, Title 10.
S.
Okay.
But you would not be the first person
To say it that way?
You bet. It is a public health program started in the, I think, Nixon administration. George Bush Sr. was one of the leaders of the program. And it was a realization that young, healthy women didn't really need comprehensive health care, but they needed health care that spoke to reproductive health because they may be having sex, which could result in kids, and they may not be ready for it. And so the public health system of the federal government started Title 10. And it was, as you can tell from the names I threw out of Nixon and Bush, it was a bipartisan program.
Yeah.
It was designed a good public health program. And as it's been evaluated over the years, it has been noted to be the most successful public health program of the 20th century because of the deep value it gives to not only healthcare, but creating families. And it has become so politicized over its time, and to the point where one thing the Trump administration has done has whittled away at this program to the point that now an organization in California that does not even believe in birth control has money to provide family planning services. What they provide is natural family planning.
Like the moon and the
rhythm method,
Yes.
Fertility awareness method, cervical mucus testing to know when your days are fertile. And they provide the abortion reversal pill, which has turned out to be a very dangerous.
What is that? I've never heard of this.
There are some people who believe that if you interrupt a medical abortion partway through, that you can stop an abortion from happening. Does
that just result in very
for some women it results in extreme bleeding and problems.
Yeah.
It's not good science.
Right.
But I digress. Title 10 has been an incredible program for all these years, but they have politicized it so much that we could no longer accept the money. We have been recipients of Title 10 here in Utah. The sole grantee, because of laws in the state, has not allowed the health department to apply for it because they don't provide services confidentially to minors. And this program believes that if a teen needs family planning services, they should be able to get them. If you would refer a woman or let a woman know that abortion is legal, you can't have Title 10 funds. And Planned Parenthood of Utah refuses to lie to women, to not provide them all the options. We have never, in all the years that we've had Title 10, ever misused a dime of that money, using it inappropriately, because we have audits every year, audits by the federal government, private auditors. Most all of the Title 10 grantees have been clean and with fidelity with that money. But the Trump administration has just screwed everything up. And one of the things they're screwing up is the Title X program.
Oh, man.
Of our $12 million budget, it was a little over $2 million.
So you took a big hit with that.
We took a big hit.
Yeah.
And we have had to redesign our business model because we are still committed to be the lowest cost provider for people to be able to realize their family planning medical needs. And so we are working with those donors I spoke so fondly of a little while ago to help make up as much money as possible. And I have to say, we have very good business practices at Planned Parenthood of Utah. When a dollar comes through us, it cries. It gets stretched so tightly. We are still seeing people. We are asking them to share in the cost.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, our accounts receivable are going up. And as Mike knows, as a board member, we've got tough decisions we're going to have to make as we look at what our clients can share with us. But we have incredible donors.
Yeah.
They're stepping up. We're using their money the best we can. I'm sure some people are afraid to come now because we have to ask. We have to ask for a $10 copay. We have to say, we can only slide this test or this method of contraception so far. And we put them on payment plans. We do our best to make sure that when they come in to see us, they leave with what they need to reach their goals in their family planning.
The cost of healthcare is just getting ridiculous, and it shouldn't be so expensive. For these things that you guys offer, it should be affordable to everybody.
Yeah, and Planned Parenthood is amazing. They really, from my experience just this year with you guys, everyone's been so helpful. They tell you upfront exactly what to expect. If you want this test, if you want that, how much it will cost. They'll run your insurance and let you know what's going to go on first before you even have to go in. It's incredible. I mean, way better than any doctor's office I've ever talked to.
Well, one thing I've enjoyed with having the ACA available, and we work with, I think, all Utah insurance companies. We have contracts with them all. They don't always pay.
Oh.
If it's not covered under your plan.
Oh, right.
Just because you have an insurance card doesn't mean everything's going to be covered.
Yeah.
And you have to meet those deductibles. But it's been, real rewarding to help people who've never had an insurance card before, to help them figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
That it's better for them to work on their deductible so that if something happens, it will kick in and work for them. And we do the best we can.
Yeah.
It has, Micah's right about bringing it up. It has made it very difficult for us to serve patients the way we've always done it and the way we want to. We can't say to people anymore, you'll get everything you need and it'll be free if you don't have money.
Yeah.
Money will have to exchange hands.
Now mention your website because people can go there to donate money too, right?
They certainly
what's the website?
Planned Parenthood.
What is it? I should know this. I'll put it at iamsaltlake.com. How's that sound, Karrie? At iamsaltlake.com with this episode. And we'll mention it again, obviously, at the end of it. But go donate a couple of bucks, give up coffee for a month or something. Help Planned Parenthood out, right?
And you can go to plannedparenthood.org and then find the Salt Lake Health Center for it. So,
yeah.
And, we've been doing, creative stuff to make it easier for people to get health care. I don't know if your listeners will remember a number of years ago, the legislature felt that it was necessary for women to wait 72 hours after they received state mandated information about an abortion to be able to have an abortion, which when your only abortion providers are in Salt Lake, it means that if you're outside of Salt Lake, you'd have to make 2 trips to get state mandated information and then go home and come back. And we were incredibly fortunate at Planned Parenthood to make friends with a fantastic entrepreneur who had created a platform for telemedicine. And he worked with us so that we could obey the law, letter and mission of the law, that people had a face-to-face conversation with an approved healthcare provider to receive their state-mandated information on a desktop or a handheld, and they could get that information and not have to come to Salt Lake twice. And that to me is a way where technology can work so well with healthcare to make it easier and less costly for people, even though the legislature thought that a woman needed 72 hours from receiving information before she could actualize her decision. We wanted to make sure that it didn't prevent her from actualizing her decision.
Interesting. Next question here from the Facebook group, Karrie. Nicole wants to know, who are their favorite lawmakers to work with? That's a big question.
I hate to say it, but it's been the Dems who have been easier to understand the sensitive nature of reproductive health care.
Why do you hate to say it? Why?
Well,
I mean, that's a given. It should be a given, right?
No, there's no reason that Republicans couldn't be compassionate.
Well, true.
About families and the needs for people to be able to actualize their dreams. But it's just been the Dems. But we have enjoyed working with them over the years. Rebecca Shavashout probably comes to mind most quickly for me because she is one of those legislators for so many years who just looked at the people. She was really working for all the people in all of her legislation, and not just her reproductive health care championships, but for people to be able to register to vote, to be able to actualize their dying wishes, for all forms of health care. She was a champion of the underdog and those who had money and were in power. So she, for me, would be one of my champions.
Now, what if somebody here listening, say they move to Salt Lake and they're in Utah and they want to start getting involved with Planned Parenthood, since when we're talking about lawmakers and whatnot, maybe they want to get involved more on political and with the lawmakers. What would you recommend? How would you recommend them to start? I mean, just contact you at Planned Parenthood or somebody at Planned Parenthood, I guess.
PlannedParenthood.org
and then
is
just
a
go
great
volunteer
place to start. You can start there just to get the history, what we believe, who we educated, programs we do. You can flip over to the political side, see who we support. How to get involved. You could become an ambassador, get an ambassador kit, learn how to talk to your family and friends. We have training programs for volunteers. We had a delightful, for our ambassadors, evening of Craft Your Liberation last week for celebrating Roe versus Wade Day. And it was at the Creative Octopus, and they just had a delightful evening together, stitching and talking. There are so many ways to get involved in Planned Parenthood.
How do you keep your spirits up? I mean, there's so much, I have a hard time watching the news, staying up on the news, staying up on that, because there's so much negativity and there's so much BS out there. And I'm sure, especially with Planned Parenthood, a lot of stuff doesn't happen the way you want it to happen.
And it must be hard to keep fighting.
How do you keep smiling, Karrie? You seem like a happy person.
Lately, I've been saying I'm drinking way too much, but I'm trying to stop that.
There's nothing wrong with a drink once in a while, though, right?
Nice scotch. But for me, it's the creativity of thinking about how to make the right thing happen. That gets my spirits going. the people I work with. I couldn't work with better people, no matter how hard I tried. The legislators, the collaborative groups who are working on legislation to restrict our rights for the next, we've done 5 days, 40 days, are incredibly creative, fun people to work with. The heart and the soul of the people who are attracted to the Planned Parenthood mission are fun people. They like helping people. The donors are humble, and for many of them, they give till it hurts. I find them to be such heroes. And as I look at people who listen to our arguments sometimes at the legislature, every once in a while I see that some people go, yeah, maybe you got a point. Those are really nice moments too.
Oh, yeah.
And then you celebrate, right?
Well, I do. And
how do you celebrate? With some scotch?
Well, I'm not a real good celebrator, to be honest. I move on to the next thing that's sitting there. But, it's the people.
Yeah.
It's the people I get to work with. It's doing things like this today.
Well, like you said, this is really fun. It's fun to meet people and share your story, share what drives you, your passion. I could feel it from you.
I know that the people, from what you've told me, who listen to your podcasts are people I've probably never met before and that I won't get to chat with. And so you've provided a vehicle for them to hear someone talk about Planned Parenthood in a very positive manner, because there's a lot to be positive about. And so, hey, I'll leave here and I'll feel pretty good. And, that makes my life round and whole and all of that sort of stuff.
And that leads us to the next question here from Brittany, one of our big listeners, right? She always has fun questions.
She always has the best questions.
She wants to know, what do you wish everyone would knew about Planned Parenthood?
My gut reaction is that we are so much more than abortion, because for so many people, their knee-jerk reaction is that we provide abortion. Yes, we do. We provide comprehensive reproductive health care for men and women, because we want people to be able to actualize their family dreams. But we are so much more than abortion. We can provide education. We can provide accessible, affordable, compassionate health care. We can provide a mission, a cause, if you want to get involved in, and just know that someone is there in your community who will be there for those who struggle to be able to afford reproductive health care, to have someone listen to their struggles, to have someone point them to the direction they may need for other services. And hopefully that can make you happy.
Yeah.
That we're there. You can feel like that need is being met in your community. And,
Now, how many locations are in Utah?
We have 8.
8 locations.
Brick and mortar locations.
I know one's up at 600 South.
We have in the valley.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the location of that
We have at 10th East between 1st and 2nd South. We have at 9th East between 6th and 7th South. We have out in West Valley, just south of 33rd South between Redwood Road and whatever's west of there in a small complex. We've got on 106th South, just west of the freeway. We've got in Orem a great facility, which is LEED certified.
Ooh, fancy.
Hey, got a garden on the top. Just off the highway, right next to Human Services in Orem. We have something in Harrison Depot, right across from the D Event Center in Ogden. We've got something in Clock Tower in Logan, and we also have a facility in St. George.
Wow, it's a good reach.
But you need something in between Orem and St. George still, right?
We do, and we do contract providers.
Okay.
And if you look on the website, we have some contract providers in the state, private providers, who we make sure that they have some money for their uninsured clients or underinsured clients to get some services. So we've got some of that out in the basin and some of that in Moab. You know, it's hard to support a brick and mortar, but we get as creative as we can. And we also do a little telehealth too. And so they can look on the website, get connected with whatever they need. And we have a call center on the usual business hours during the week who can make sure that they can find what they need and make it work for them.
Let's shift gears a little bit. We have a few Salt Lake City questions that we ask everybody that comes through here, Karrie. We have family and friends that visit us. I'm sure you have family and friends from Wisconsin that come and visit you here, Karrie, and they're like, show me around Utah. We all have a few things that we like to take them, you know, maybe in the mountains or downtown or show them a building, a hike. What's the Karrie tour? Do you have like one or two places you like to take people?
Oh, for friends and family.
Yeah, friends and family.
When they're visiting, I always want to make sure they have some mole at Red Iguana.
Best food here.
Yeah.
Well, best Mexican food, yeah.
It's fun. But I like to cook at home.
Okay.
And in the summer, we do a lot of barbecuing, and I'm a homebody.
Okay.
But often when friends have come, we'll go to the Red Rock area. We'll take a trip down to Zion, or we'll do the Moab area.
Okay.
And that's a lot of fun.
It's beautiful.
And I have to say, I'm someone who always combines pleasure and work. And so if family comes in February, they end up at the chocolate festival in Logan that benefits Planned Parenthood.
Of course. Well, why not?
I don't
right?
see any losers in this situation.
No, except that there's usually a storm that night to drive to Logan. But other than that, but then there are lots of hotels. You can just stay overnight. You know, back when we skied,
were you a big skier?
That's one of the reasons I moved here. But I have to say, carrying kids on my back skiing ruined my knees, and I don't like surgery. So we'll just not ski anymore. I do water aerobics instead. So
it's a little easier on the knees, right?
It is. It's certainly. And you don't have to worry about falling over if your balance gets bad.
I love it.
And I take people to water aerobics with me.
There you go.
You know, it's just, Utah is a fun place.
Oh, it is.
To live. And you can just live here, or you can celebrate it, enjoy it. There's a little something for everyone.
What about, you mentioned Red Iguana. Another question I ask people is favorite local eating spots. Do you have another favorite besides Red Iguana? I mean, even when you're visiting some of these Planned Parenthood locations in Logan even, or do you have like one or two that stick out to you?
Oh, there's the candy store in Logan.
Okay.
Bluebird Cafe. Oh, it's a regular supper club, which, being from Wisconsin, that's a nice way to go. And so that's a fun place to do. And I just enjoy the diners.
Yeah.
Ray's.
Oh, yeah.
Is a good place to visit as you're heading to Moab. You can always figure out a meal in Green River.
Yeah.
You know, things like that are a lot of fun.
What would you change about Utah if you could? Let's say you had the ability, and this is probably going to be a really hard question for you because you probably have a million things you would love to change. But I ask everybody this that comes through.
I don't know. Better parking at the Capitol?
Okay. I agree with that,
I
actually,
think
yeah.
that at this time of the year, I have to say, I got princess parking yesterday afternoon at 1:30.
No kid.
I couldn't believe it.
That's impressive.
The crown just went up on my head. I had a cape flowing behind me as I got out of the car. those little challenges in life really make my day. I don't know that I would change anything because I've chosen to live here and this is what we've got. And it provides.
No, and I like that answer.
Yeah.
I've had quite a few
too.
people that come on the podcast and they're like, you know what? If we change things about Utah, it won't be the Utah we love.
Yeah,
it won't be the Salt Lake City we love. And I mean, I know there's simple things like our alcohol laws and you know, with Planned Parenthood, but sometimes that fight is what.
You know, I mean, everywhere you go, there's the good and the bad, and that's what makes it that place, right? I like that.
We've had a blast having you on the podcast, Karrie. While we're kind of wrapping this up, let's mention the gala again. I like to open it up. Is there anything that you want to mention before we wrap this up? Something you want to tell our listeners? You want to give shout outs? You know, while we're still recording here. Well, let's start with the gala again. That's the 28th of March.
The one thing I want to say about the gala is this is community supporter sponsored. Mike Aguilar has an incredible spirit and determination to be able to celebrate events. And the new friends he has brought into Planned Parenthood has just been wonderful. People who never thought about Planned Parenthood before, but Mike brought them in, and they're great supporters right now. I have to say to the donors out there who have reached deep as we've lost Title X and face so many challenges administratively for this administration, they're my heroes. They really understand the power of the pocketbook to make our community the best that we can make it. And for the people I work with, the people I associate with, that's what makes Utah, Salt Lake, as strong as it is. You know, it's the title of your podcast, I Am Salt Lake, and you can feel good about it when you're connected with Planned Parenthood because you know you're doing the right thing for your fellow community members. And that's what I'd bring about Planned Parenthood, what it brings to me, what I hope it can bring to your listeners, other than good health care, good education, a place for advocacy. I wish them good, responsible sex.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm on board.
And I'll put all the links for the Facebook page and for your website and all that at iamsaltlake.com with this. Connect with that. You also, we were talking about that before we started recording. I want to urge the listeners to go check out the Birds in the Beehive podcast. You haven't updated it for a while, but there's some really great back episodes with a lot of really great information. I know you were on an episode. I want to say the second episode that you all did on that, but go back, check it out. Whatever podcast app you're listening to this in right now, you can check that out as well. Subscribe and download it. Chrissy has a final question she throws out, Karrie. I'm going to let her throw that out. Thank you again for coming and doing the show. It's been a blast.
Okay,
it really
Chrissy.
has been. Oh, you're on the spot now. So if you could leave our listeners with a life motto or a piece of advice that you live by, what would it be?
Get involved. You just can't sit back and expect things to go the way you dream unless you get involved. You'll feel so much better about things when you make a difference. So I'd say get involved.
Many thanks again to Karrie Galloway for joining us on this episode. All the links that we mentioned in this conversation can be found with this episode show notes on our website, which can be found at iamsaltlake.com/422. That's for episode 422.
I want to tell you about a new podcast I'm doing, and I moved really quickly on this one, Chrissy, because if you figure this is episode 422, we had Tim Pickett on episode 420. So after I was done recording with Tim, I was like, oh my gosh, Tim, I got to do a podcast with you. I would love to do a podcast about cannabis, about medical cannabis here in Utah. So, of course, I started up Utah in the Weeds. It's not available probably tomorrow. We're recording this outro on a Sunday. It'll probably, by the time you're listening to this, it should be available in Apple Podcast. Mm-hmm. Right now it's in Spotify, or go to Utah in the Weeds on Facebook. You can listen to it on the website there. But it's going to be a fun project. You know, there are so many awesome CBD, hemp, THC, and then with the dispensaries opening up here in Utah on March 2nd, Monday, when this podcast technically releases.
And the thing is, we have such an active community in the cannabis industry in Utah. It's just starting to take it off the ground, right? And there's not a lot of information. So this is like an amazing podcast that will follow everybody who's a part of the community. And, you know, it'll help with everybody who wants to learn more about medical cannabis in Utah.
Exactly. And I don't know, was I clear? Tim Pickett's going to be doing the podcast with me.
Yeah, your co-host.
The co-host.
Fabulous co-host.
Which is cool because I don't really know him that well, right?
Right.
You know, we just had him on episode 420, but it's going to be cool because hopefully, he seems like a cool guy.
He's such a cool guy. And who wants to do another show with your wife, right?
Hey, just because I said that in episode 1. I love doing this
I think it's amazing.
With you, Chrissy.
I think it's amazing.
I love doing I Am Salt Lake with you, but it was time to start another podcast, Utah in the Weeds. If you can go subscribe, go look for it. It should be in Apple Podcast any moment. Go find it in Spotify. We're going to have it in all the players. Let me know what you think of it. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with that podcast.
It's truly an entertaining show.
It is the first episode of the month. It's March. Can you believe it? Spring is right around the corner. It is time to...
Why is it snowing?
Well, yeah, that's today. It's time to give some love to our Patreon supporters, which if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, you can go to patreon.com/IamSaltLake. I understand that not everybody can do this, so thank you to those that can, and thank you to those that donate a little bit more to kind of help make up for those of you that can't donate. Again, that's patreon.com/IamSaltLake. The link's also on our Facebook page and website and all that. Anyway, our Patreon supporters, thank you to John Miller. Thank you, Eric Tomorrow. Thank you, Jeff Hadfield. Thank you, Brittany Hemingway. Thank you, Will Dugdale. Thank you, Brandon Hill. Thank you, Alex Santee. Thank you, Nicole Davison. Thank you, Tim Haran. Thank you, Todd Bjorkland. Thank you, Mark Copeland. I'm thanking everybody, Chris.
I know. I feel like these are the real powerhouses behind our show.
Yeah. And then thank you. We got a couple more here. Sana. We got Alan Martindale. We got Brett Schmidt. We got Jay Chambers, Christopher Heiser, Margaret over there at Dirt in Your Skirt podcast, Michelle Williams Stevens, Nikki Line, 3 Irons SLC, and Nick Naylor. I think I got all of our Patreon supporters. Wow, we got a great group of people, though.
We really do.
And what's been really fun lately is I've been releasing the episodes I think it's about 1 week early for our Patreon supporters. So if you're
sometimes 2 weeks.
Sometimes 2 weeks. So if you're a Patreon supporter, you're going to get our episodes early. You get your own little RSS feed in the whole 9 yards. Again, that is patreon.com/IamSaltLake. Even for $1, you can become a Patreon supporter.
And an insider. I Am Salt Lake Insider.
A badass supporter. Hey, let's wrap this episode up, though, today, Chrissy.
Sounds good. A few things before we leave. You can subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. We're also on Spotify and Pandora. Just search for I Am Salt Lake inside of any of those apps and hit the subscribe button so every episode comes right to your phone when we release it. And also, if you want to support this podcast, you can do that by supporting the awesome businesses at supportsaltlake.com.
All right, you guys have a great week. Always remember to support our awesome businesses here in Salt Lake City. Give your mom a call on the phone, and we're going to see you right here, right next week on the next episode of I Am Salt Lake.
And good night, Grammy.